My name is Ben O'Hanlon. I'm the head of community for IOG. This is Matthew Capps.
Yeah, my name is Matthew Capps. I focus on the moment on community chapters and leading the minimum viable community framework. So,
we just need a clicker.
Yeah, we need a clicker for our presentation. We'll be getting that in a second.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Great. So we've got a presentation about building communities, minimum viable community we're going to talk about. My name is Ben. I've been 2 years at IOG developing our community teams. We deliver about 15 services to the business, so I'm going to give you some insight into that. And I've been in Cardano for about 4 years, serving the ecosystem. I worked at Cardano Foundation, and before that I worked for communities, privacy-focused tech, market research communities, and one for a bank. And when I joined IOG, Tamara, who's president of IOG, said to me, "You don't own a community, you're part of it, and you'll be as relevant as you want to be." And I was really excited by that, because I felt like we can be as relevant as we want to be, right? Like, I felt really empowered by it. Oh, is this back or forward? Sorry. Great. So this presentation's for you. If you're a builder and you want to build better communities, if you're a learner and you want to achieve product community fit, if you're curious and you love metrics that matter, and if you're going to share, because we want to learn from your experiences too. And at the end, if you make it to the end, you're going to get an invite to our minimum viable community newsletter that's super stealthy at the moment, early access to minimum viable community workshop that we're planning, plus a copy of this slide deck, because it looks great, right? After all that effort put in. It does. But like, when I got here, we spent like 7 hours from midnight getting this together because we've just been so busy. Okay, so what does my team do? I don't know why. My caps, this isn't how it was when I left it. But community success. We have 2 squads. One's community success, and they have community engagement, onboarding, channel moderation, meetups, events. Community chapters that Matthew's leading, and IOG has tribes, and in those tribes they'll hire community managers, and we want to create a support framework where we can help them ask the right questions and work with each other. So it's a really great opportunity for people that do get hired, because they're autonomous 80 to 90% of the time, and 10 to 20% of the time they can come in and work with us to look at what challenges they've got, and we can build out like a playbook, you know? With developer relations, which includes DApp relations. So our team does SPO, developer relations, the UTXO Alliance. We work with the dApps as well. And Anita on my team is managing the Pledis backlog and the contracts with the engineers and the App Council. And then also, we have strategy and planning, which is the team operations, internal advocacy. The reason I brought this slide up is there's only 4 of us, not including myself. So we're a really small team that has like an outsized impact. This is my little graphic. I think in the middle we've got, there's no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. So we have a very kind of like Web3 point of view. We think community is relational and it's about shared success. And you know, for people maybe that have worked in more kind of corporate enterprise situations, sometimes they have a tendency to think about transactional ownership, audiences, things like that. So we're opposed to that. We don't agree with that point of view. Best job I ever had, if you ever see me on Twitter talking about it. And if you're building a community and that's what you're interested in doing, you have to walk the line between representing your project or company and representing the community. And you have to have both of the interests in mind at all the times. And this is why I love this quote, because everybody in the company, you're the community person, right? And if you're talking to the community, they think you're the business. So what is a community? It's people, and it's a shared purpose, and it's relationships all the way down. It's about building relationships, it's about the culture, and I think people have seen, maybe it's on my LinkedIn, competitors can't copy communities. It's a moat, you know? And communities can't be bought or sold. There are different types of communities: circumstance, place, practice, action, interest. You can have hybrids as well. So I'm not saying it's not if, it's not or, it can be and. And I'm going to let Matthew pick up this bit.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so which one's which? That's forward. Okay. Yeah, so my name is Matthew. I'm leading community chapters and minimum viable community in Ben's team. And so community chapters, like Ben said, is training for product-specific community hires to give them the best practices, the frameworks, the tools that they need to make community a success for their product team. Minimum viable community is that framework. It's how we take communities from scratch, just from a product and a user base and, ideas and values to an actual set of individuals who care, who are in relationship with each other, and who can carry that culture. So after the talk, like Ben has said, come talk to us. We're really excited to hear about your communities and the things that you're doing in them. So what is minimum viable community? Well, sort of the header that we put on all of this is experimentation and iteration, because community builders have a problem, which is that you have a limited amount of resources and you can't get it right in one swing. You can't create a blueprint and then just will a community into being. You have to talk to people, which is what Ben is always telling me. So we call this community discovery because you have a certain set of starting points. You have a team, you have a product, you have a user base, you have a market. But what you don't yet have is those conversations, those relationships built up over weeks, months, years. And that's how you build out minimum viable community, is with conversation at every single stage. So the process ends with, the goal is product community fit. People talk about product market fit, but there's also this idea of having a set of individuals who care about your vision, your values, and can interact with each other around your product and the value that it brings. So something else that Ben is always saying is build small to build big. So you want to use a process of asking questions to prompt the expression of this culture, from a single cell to begin with up to a full ecosystem. So you want to test small, conserve your resources, but validate that community concept and make sure that those values resonate and that people understand what you're pushing for and that they're on board with it, that they'll advocate for you. So just to reinforce that, if you get the community concept wrong, you work for months and months and months just sort of in this realm of ideas, and then you come to like a group of individuals out there who maybe use your product, maybe they're interested, and you just say, hey, this is what the community is. You're going to get it wrong because you can't anticipate what the relationships will look like, what the history will look like, what the stories will look like. And if you do that, you're going to lose all of those resources. So you need that process of first checking, are people interested? Will you get their attention? Do your ideas, do your systems of content and conversation, do they capture people? Can they motivate people into action? And then is that sustainable such that you'll have a long arc of developing community and also reaping the benefits of community? So this is a little joke, which is, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just saying, the thing about building a community is you're trying to find a core group of people that really believe in the mission, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be your welcome party. They're going to set the culture of that community. You don't want marketing to turn on the funnel, have loads of people come in and they walk into like an empty desert or an empty room. You need to build that core group up first, which is what minimum viable community is about. And I was laughing at this because sometimes people, you sit in a room, you've got the Emerald City in your mind, you've put all of this work, like Matthew's saying, into it, and you've never gone out and actually talked to anybody and checked whether it's going to resonate with them, do they even care about it, I have so many ideas and not all of them turn out to be great, right? So that could be true for you too. So that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, if I were a teenage girl, I would love our new product. But have you actually gone out and talked to any of those individuals? Have you seen if it resonates with them, if they start sharing those same ideas with each other? I'm just using all of Ben's catchphrases here, but it's not what you say, it's what they hear and repeat amongst themselves. It's the stories that they begin telling.
That's true. It's not what I say. It's not what I can't say. I've got on the spot now.
It's not what you say.
If I say it, you doubt it.
Yeah.
But if you say it, it's true, right? So if I say it, you doubt it. But if you say it, it's true. And so what it means is you don't want to go out and tell people what your community is about. You want to have a discussion and see whether or not the pain points or like what they care about is going to come out. If they say it, it's true, right? And then you're able to go back from those conversations later on and be like, hey, Tom, you said you're really interested in Pokemon communities and your 3 pain points around Pokemon with this. I'm just making this up. He's not really into Pokemon. So you can go back to those people you've had conversations with and play back to them the things that they said that they cared about, right? So that's what we're trying to communicate.
Yeah. And it's always more meaningful if you can show them having said it, that they've expressed it. This is how they put the ideas. It's not something that you are monologuing to them. So community lifecycle, minimum viable community, this process of taking your starting points with a product, a user base, a market, and coming through the full lifecycle of actually having a set of individuals who are a community, who have a culture, and it's built around your product. That is just a starting point to launch into the full sort of life cycle of community, up into the point where you've established, you have people who are actually advocating your community for you. And I think that Rare Bloom is actually an excellent example of this because, within the space of the Cardano community, it's not the Cardano Foundation, it's not IOG, it's not these founding entities who are just driving everything at this point. You have community members who are creating their own events, who are driving forward the mission and the purpose of Cardano. Which is not something that you could expect to have simply if you're a company monologuing to an audience.
It's a good example, because the other thing I think this slide has to communicate is that when you're at the start, what you're doing at inception or even conception before that is going to be one-to-one. It's going to be relational, and it's going to be in the micro, right? And as the community's building out, as you were saying, like Rare Bloom or even Cardano, that's like a mitosis where it becomes like a community of communities, what you're doing is at scale, right? So your job changes as the community grows. You're not always doing the same thing. And that top bit there is, when you're measuring growth, it goes up in a line, right? But when you're actually creating growth, it's lots and lots of iterations and decision cycles.
Yeah, and you create a community of communities that have a symbiotic relationship with each other and provide an ongoing set of resources for you, your products, your teams. So this is just to give you an idea. What we tend to do with a product team is begin with community discovery. We have a simple framework that we take them through where we say, here are the basic elements of what community is for you. Here's the potential. Here's the basic actions that we need to run through. It's simplicity and alignment from the very beginning, because you want to, as a community manager, align with your team and with their business goals. Because ultimately, the community can't get off the ground if it's not supported by this resource, right? So it's simplicity and alignment from.
And another thing is,
sorry.
Go about one. So when we have product teams come to us and they want to build a community, like we're saying, if I say you doubt it, if you said it's true, we need to get them to think about like who's it for, what are they doing? Like it's not just they're not there because they. What value is the community actually exchanging? For the people in it, horizontally, right? Not just vertically. And so what Matthew is showing you here is actually a Miro board that's like interactive. It's just an example. But another lesson that we learned was when we're trying to explain community to different people or different teams, even if it comes from a place of experience and we know what we're talking about, to the person that's hearing our message, it's theoretical, right? So it doesn't always land. You can explain things 3 or 4 different times, but until they actually experience and feel it, they won't know it. So the point about making this an interactive framework that we put people through is that we want to get them into the point of gaining experience as quickly as possible. There's just no point talking to people over and over. It's much better to get them involved, So you saw Matthew as an example of doing this, was doing the Gonzo videos with the Lace team. We were just like, sneaky, let's get the Lace team into the community and we'll do the videos. And then afterwards, they'll have really got a flavor for it. And that's going to help us build the community out with them by getting them to have experience rather than just monologuing, as you said.
Yeah. So this goes back to that principle, right, of starting with conversations, iterating, getting feedback quickly, and making sure that you're a part of a continuous conversation, not only with the community, but with your own team internally. So finally, just to wrap it up here, for my part of this presentation, keeping it lean. You don't have to put in a ton at the very beginning. What it requires is just a simple set of tools for facilitating conversation, for testing ideas, and for giving people a medium in which to participate and contribute and find meaning in that. So things like an email digest, things like a live chat like Discord, Telegram. Read-only announcements just to give people that sense of connection to your team and to the development of their product. Giving people just that very bare minimum is how you can start to test community and begin to leverage it to prove the value of your community to your team.
Yeah, a good strategy deploys a limited set of resources for maximum effect. So you don't want to over-invest. You want to just get to the answer as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I think.
And so I will hand it over back
yeah.
now to Ben for the rest of the presentation.
So we wanted to talk about onboarding, what's going to happen when someone's actually joined your community. And I think you need to think about welcome emails to give them a map of the territory. What value are they looking to extract or get? And 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plans is something that we work on so that we can look at what are we intending to happen in those first 90 days. Once they're there for longer than 90 days, I think it's a different ballgame. It's retention. So the reason somebody joins your community isn't going to be the reason that they stay, right? They might join because they're interested in the talk or an NFT or whatever it might be, right? But it's going to be probably relationships and the value that they're getting out of it. This is just illustrative, but I'm trying to show you with this slide about getting into somebody's head and thinking about what motivates them and why they're there. And sometimes when we're creating a container or a vehicle, we're trying to think about how can I make it that I'm going to give you 3, 4, 5 times the perceived value than what I'm asking for. So if I'm asking for email address, I want to understand you well enough to know you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. So like with this slide deck, you're going to join our newsletter, you get the workout group, plus I'm going to give you the slide, right? So thinking about what people's perspectives are and what they want is key. I threw this in because it's just great. Best content for a community is content about the community. So people love to see a mirror. They love to see themselves reflected. It's compelling to know, we went to Rare Bloom. And then to be able to see all the things that happened. Me and Matt will watch ourselves back on the video later. It'll be great, Next thing, I want to talk about North Star metrics. So in my time at IAG, I've had to develop a lot. And I realized that there's a lot of complexity. And you're in an environment that's moving very fast, right? And so I'm not saying this is the only thing you measure, but just getting really clear about what you're going to ask somebody to look at in your team to understand growth is doing good work, and then there's being seen to do good work, right? So an example of that is, I've got some coming up actually. So North Star metric, does it reflect value creation over time? Does it include time to value? Is it tied to financial success? What's that one number going to be? And I've got some examples. I've also realized why I've used a fancy font on this slide deck that hasn't carried over clearly to the laptop, which is why we're not getting it looking exactly as it is. So good North Star metrics, like an example, okay? There are lots of different communities in Cardano, NFT, there are developers, there are SPOs. So a Net Promoter Score, which we would send out in a survey, would ask somebody, would they recommend the experience to their peers? So I can give you one number from 30,000 foot to understand how all these different communities might feel, right? Is the number going up or down? Is it low? Is it high? You might ask me then, well, Ben, why are SPOs dropping in NPS? That's great, because I'll have the metrics and we can look at that and we can have a discussion about that in more granular detail. But I'm just making your life easy by just giving you one number to think about, right? If you're in a team that doesn't care to, that isn't thinking about community all the time, or if it's leadership. Other examples are like time to value. How long does it take somebody in your community from the point they've joined to achieve some kind of value out of that experience, Monthly active developers is another example. And engagement is value neutral. So don't measure engagement just for the sake of measuring engagement, right? If you've got a really clear 30, 60, 90-day plan, then maybe engagement's interesting along that journey, but it's not a metric in itself, This is my favorite topic, but it's the one that I'm least successful in communicating. So I'll give it a go and we'll see how it goes. But adults make about 35,000 decisions daily. I think this is a made-up figure on the internet, so I'm not saying it's necessarily true. But a child makes about 3,000. The number might sound absurd, right? So I was talking to Tom, actually, yesterday, and the sum of it is like In my experience, it's a fast-moving environment. There's a lot of change, and I can see that some people can suffer in projects, right, when they're building communities, can feel anxiety and stress, and they can get burnout. And my interpretation of that is certainty is like a siren's call, you know? Sirens that are calling the sailors to wreck their ships. So this need for certainty is a siren's call, and people will have a plan or they have an idea of how something should work. And if you think about it, it's static, isn't it? You know, the land is static. But the way that we talk about it is we're always building in flight. So we look at the decision cycle. I said earlier, like a good strategy is deploying limited resources. So we focus on a decision cycle, which is observation, orientation, decision, and action. And our job is to help people observe and orientate, and it's up to them to take decisions and actions, right? It also means if you're working with a team, I'm not responsible for whether you actually make an individual decision or an action, but if I improve your observation and orientation on the macro, we're going to have better outcomes. And if you make better decisions, you'll waste less resources and you'll be able to get more done. And it's a way of kind of manipulating time. So the takeaway here is a decision cycle, thinking about how somebody's going to observe and orientate and then decide and act, is the most granular strategy I know of dealing with uncertainty, and it means that I don't have that kind of anxiety or burnout because I know I have a map of the territory that's constantly evolving. I don't know if that makes sense. Well, so this is your minimum viable community framework that Matthew's talking about, and so the way that we see it is a lot of people are trying to build communities in isolation, and they all face similar problems, and they all have to pay the same kind of costs. But with the minimum viable community framework, where Matthew's work with the chapters is the genesis, and then we open source it and bring the whole community into it, we can all benefit from solving these problems, and people that come after us or people that are doing similar work at the time, we can build out a playbook, the best tactics, different things that we've tried, and it would be cohort-based, right? So if you're a developer or you're someone that has a project in Cardano, what we're able to do is offer that person that you're hiring, usually your first hire, a support network, whether with other community managers, a way of moving that community forward, and then we'd also want to help them learn how to manage up and report in the team, right? So they are more likely to get what they're asking for agreed, decisions made, that kind of thing. So this brings us towards the end, and we want you to come and ask us questions if you've got any. Tell us what's holding you back and what you've tried so far. We're aware of our limitations, which is that we work in a really big company, and so we don't necessarily have the perspective of building a community from someone on the ground, right, within Cardano. So I think we've all got something to learn from each other, so we're really interested in doing that. And we want to run some community workshops around a newsletter, keep it really small. So if you're interested in that, I stuck a link up on my Twitter. So you can subscribe to that, and we'll send some communications out. And we'll just kind of kickstart this minimum viable community thing, but it'll be like a, well, what's the word before? It's pre-launch, it's stealth, something like that, you know? Yeah. And that's the end of the deck.
That's the end of the deck. Thanks.
Thank you.